After the introduction of the characters, God speaks directly to Abram and says, "Leave your country, your relatives, and your father's house, for I will show you a new land." The command is simple but seismic. Leaving family is not only travel, it is a rupture with security and identity. In that very moment, Abram listens and obeys. He takes his wife Sarai and all their possessions and the people they had acquired, and they set out for the land God indicates. This obedience is the first public act of faith in his story, not ritual, but movement toward promise. As the dust settles, Abram and Sarai travel toward Canaan. They cross plains and small towns where strangers watch them pass. Their movement signals trust, yet also vulnerability, for they have no legal title, only a divine call, and the fragility of tents and herds. Days pass, and then God appears to Abram again, promising, "I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth." He promises descendants and blessing. This covenant language means more than land. It ties Abram to a future people and to God's faithful purposes in history. But before the night ends, the narrator hints at transformation. Abram will become Abraham and Sarai will be Sarah in later texts. Here the promise begins the process. Names and identities will shift because God is creating a new family line with covenantal purpose. When morning comes, Abram builds an altar to the Lord at Shechem. Sacrifices and altars in this culture mark claim and worship. Abram's altar declares thankfulness and a claim on this land, not by conquest, but by worship and memory of God's word. As the caravan keeps moving, Abram pitches his tents between Bethel and Ai, and there he builds another altar and calls on the name of the Lord. The hill country is quieter, a place to pause and listen, and his worship is the visible practice that roots the promise in daily life. But before the promise fully unfolds, a famine rises in the land. In that hard season, Abram moves down to Egypt to survive. Famine forces migration and tests faith because material needs confront spiritual promises, and compromise can be tempting. When they reach Egypt, Abram fears for Sarai. He thinks the Egyptians will kill him to take her because she is beautiful. Fear now shapes his decisions. Instead of trusting the promise, he chooses a human tactic to protect himself by hiding the full truth. In that tense moment, Abram tells the Egyptians that Sarah is his sister, not his wife. He hopes for protection through deception. This half-truth reflects the human tendency to use cleverness when faith feels weak and reveals tension between divine promises and human fear. As a result, Sarah is taken into Pharaoh's house, and Abram receives gifts. The social dynamics of Egypt are at play. Beautiful women attract royal attention, and marriage is a political act. Abram's choice seems to secure advantage, but at moral cost. But before long, the Lord afflicts Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah. God's intervention protects Sarah and exposes the moral wrong in Abram's tactic. Divine action corrects human compromise and asserts that promises will not be secured by deceit. In that same hour, Pharaoh calls Abram and charges, "Why did you not tell me she is your wife?" Pharaoh sends them away with their possessions and rebukes Abram. The foreign ruler becomes an unwitting instrument of God to correct Abram and restore Sarah's dignity. When morning comes, Abram departs Egypt with more livestock and silver, but also with a changed heart. The material gain does not erase the lesson. He has learned the cost of fear and the necessity of trusting God's promise even amid scarcity. Back in the hill country, Abram again builds an altar and calls on the Lord. This repetition shows growth. Faith shaped by experience returns to worship. The altar now carries memory of promise, trial, and correction, anchoring Abram's journey toward covenant identity. Days pass, and the core of the chapter remains, a promise that Abram will become a great nation and be a blessing. Even after failure and fear, the narrative insists that God's word stands and will shape history through this family line.